Hi everyone. Welcome to the webinar today. It's a very big topic, self-awareness. So we're just going to narrow it down a little bit. And mainly today we're going to be looking at introducing the Grow and Develop assessment, and really so you can see what's in it and really how you can use it for development of awareness. You know, sometimes I feel we get a little bit stuck in using the same assessments over and over. Yet there is a huge amount of information to be gained from some of the other reports that we tend not to use. So I wanted to point this out because we could be missing some vital information that could be really helpful for yourself or clients that you might be coaching, or staff, employees, etc. So I'm going to be mentioning the Grow and Develop, as well as looking at the 360 feedback report, which many of you know that I really love anyway. So self-awareness. You know, it's a crucial thing for today's business environment, as well as being crucial socially, personally, and professionally. Why? Well, self-awareness is the thing that can lead to a better understanding of how our own behaviour works, which in turn allows us to adjust our interactions to people around us. So if we understand ourselves better in situations, we can understand others' differences and similarities, and this builds on a culture of tolerance and lead to more effective interactions. And I'm all for that. But it's more than that. Plain speaking, great self-awareness is linked to increased job satisfaction, better creativity, increased staff retention, more effective communication, and increased productivity, to name but a few. But remarkably, it's been found that even though many people believe they are self-aware, like true self-awareness can actually be quite rare. It's actually only estimated that 10 to 15% of people studied accurately fit the criteria of what self-awareness actually is. So how do you get self-awareness? Self-awareness tends to get divided into two aspects. So let me talk on that first. There's the aspects of internal and external. So let's talk about internal for a moment. Internal self-awareness, or some know it as self-knowledge, is an understanding of who we are and how we are similar to or different to from others. It's how we see our own various personality traits, values, attitudes, and behaviours. But it's more than that. It's really knowing yourself through your own weaknesses, your own strengths, motivators, what might push your buttons and make you react. You may work better under pressure, while others need a more deliberate and planned approach. You may like a lot of freedom and autonomy when you work, while others prefer to have boundaries and expectations well established in their work life. So though we can all cope when we're not in our ideal situation, if it happens repetitively, it can lead to a feeling of demotivated or a little bit disconnected. So knowing yourself really is the key to improving yourself, and understanding your behavioural style is a fundamental part of that. Understanding who you are actually as a person and why you react the way you do is a really important step to self-knowledge. And it's this first type of self-awareness that is actually linked with increased job and relationship satisfaction, by the way. So it's not, however, all about self-knowledge. Excuse me. The other aspect is being aware of how consistent or inconsistent our self-view is compared to an external appraisal. So this is external self-awareness, how other people see us, their perceptions of us. It's basically defined as the ability to understand how others see you and how you incorporate those views into your own evaluation of yourself. So external self-awareness is associated with greater levels of empathy and understanding others' perspectives. I mean, I can only hint at telling you how essential this is for transforming self-knowledge beyond personal analysis into accurate, well-balanced self-awareness. And it's for that reason why I do tend to implement or recommend doing an Open 360 report as part of anyone's development plan, and not always just for leadership development. But I'm going to talk on the 360s just a little bit later on. Why is self-awareness just so important? Well, as individuals, the more we understand why we might be reacting or acting in a certain way, the more we can frame a situation to suit us and learn not to take things personally. Understanding why it might not be the best time for you to be approaching a client if you're emotionally geared up and need processing time, or that you might be pushing the boundaries on a sale to get that win, your motivator, but be understanding and be prepared for the accounts person to be annoyed as they don't have a form for your out of the box deal you've just done. So it might be a trigger for their annoyance. It's outside the rules. Rules are important to them. It can be one of their demotivators. We certainly can't learn everyone's buttons and triggers, good or bad, as we are all a bit unique and we all have areas that might trigger us for our own reasons. But there is definitely a behavioural trend that can be applied to certain styles of people. So, for example, the way we might react and interact in stress situations, what our fears are that trigger us, what we do tend to try to avoid, what frustrates us and what frustrates others about us, our motivators, strengths, etc. All of this can be learned using the easy framework of extended disc, and much of this sort of material is also available on the VIP section of the hrprofiling.solutions.com website. If you're not using an actual assessment, log on there and have a look at the generic material that can actually help you with the different styles and some self-awareness about them. So, can a behavioural assessment help? Yes, big time. Of course it can. As I said before, internal self-awareness means knowing your traits, needs, habits, how you manage emotions, strengths, knowing what can stress you and how to reduce it, how you tend to make decisions, and all this knowledge can give you insight into how you might like to lead or even motivate others, especially if you're in leadership. Nicer for your team and certainly nicer for you. And that's where the grow and develop assessment can actually be used. It can tell you this and more. Understandably, the standard extended disc assessment can offer a plethora of information that can be used in self-development. I use it all the time as well. And however, as I said before, sometimes we forget that there are some specialised reports that can yield some really good information. So the Grow and Develop assessment has much of the standard information, as well as other very specific insights in very specific areas that can be applied to increasing self-knowledge. So this is wonderful, wonderful stuff if you're doing self-development with someone or a personal development plan. I tend to run this report myself whenever I'm looking at working further with someone in development or a coaching capacity. So it means that I run it for myself to give me insights about the person, but I also run it for a manager for them to understand how to coach and about themselves. But I also run it for each of the team members as it holds vital information on how individuals like to be managed by that person, team connections, empathy areas, and more. So after all, management does involve a lot of coaching as well. And so information grouped in such a practical way is very usable. So let's look at some of the areas of the Grow and Develop assessment. We obviously can't get through it all today, so it's important if you'd like a sample and would like to learn a bit more about this valuable assessment, just contact HR Profiling at the end of the webinar and I'll put the details up for you. So firstly, I'm going to skip over the normal profiles, diamonds, development pages, etc., because by now, if you are involved with extended disc, you should be fully aware of how you can use those vital areas for self-knowledge. They're incredibly insightful. So I'm going to start with the Grow and Develop assessment and look at a few pages in. The first one I'm going to have a look at is the brief snapshot page of About You. It talks about areas that you may try to avoid, your decision making at a glance, your ideal manager, your communication style, just briefly. And among other things, obviously, it has, as you can see here on the slide. This is a really great page for getting feedback rolling. It's an icebreaker and it gets the person talking about each of the little snippets. I find I can spend quite a bit of time on this page getting the person's perception of themselves and how it fits with the assessment. Obviously, it's a really good page too to make sure that they really understand that this is gathering their raw or natural behaviours, not ones that they have developed or learnt to adjust. So your learning style. Much has been written on learning styles, and you only need to Google it to see all the information that comes forward in this field. But again, nothing can beat learning when it's applied accurately and directly to the person being assessed. So, do you know your own preferred style? One of the things I found out in the corporate world is actually people don't even know what a preferred style is. In brief, a learning style is an individual's approach to learning based on strengths, weaknesses, and preferences. Knowing yourself and how you learn is important if you want to achieve the best of your ability. When it comes to processing information, our brains are the hot seat. It's where all the thinking, learning, and decision making takes place. If you know your learning style, then you can learn in a smarter way that suits you. This I find very important for developing leaders and how to manage individuals as well. So the next one we're going to have a look at, as you can see there, is the chart on the bottom. And this is a preferred job content generic chart. A bit like learning styles, if you know your preferred job content or preferred work environments, similar, they again can match this with the needs and wants, and better still, reflect them back to your motivators and demotivators. Sometimes I have a ringside view of people that are unaware of what they may need in their job position. And I can watch them feel quite discontented without them knowing why they do feel discontented. I'm definitely not saying that they or you can't do a job that is outside your natural preferred environment. In fact, at times we all have to do aspects of our jobs that make us feel quite uncomfortable. But there are definitely fundamentals that you can try to work into your surroundings that help with keeping you engaged and connected. So it's a bit like me seeing a high D being micromanaged and given a lot of rules and boundaries. You can see on the chart on the screen there that one aspect they prefer is freedom. Of course, they can work within boundaries, well, mostly, but they prefer to make their decisions within that framework themselves. They need to feel that they have the authority and freedom to do so. So looking at over onto the C side there of the chart, you can see two aspects that I'm going to pick on today. One is clear role and the ability for concentration. Not being given any parameters, boundaries, or expectations of their role can really hinder them, especially when their job description hasn't been kept up to date with their actual job scope. And believe it or not, that happens a lot. So, and also for a C-type, working in a chaotic environment when they need the ability to concentrate is also another preference. These days, more and more companies are actually setting up their open planned offices using DISC. In the middle is the C style. Sorry, what am I saying? In the middle is the I style. The next perimeter out is the S. Then the D's on the outer circle, and the C's are nicely tucked away in the corners to keep them out of the chaos and give them that quietness when they need to concentrate. So in using the Grow and Develop assessment, evaluate your preferred style and see where you sit. Often we are attracted to industries where we can actually get a certain amount of what we need, but not always. Time management. Wow, this is a biggie out there in the workplace. I really notice that when I work with people doing their personal development plans, this time management tends to be the biggest one that is requested for extra coaching help. I find that many struggle to implement good practice time management, even though they're supposed to be natural at it, like an S or even a C, that enjoys planning, lists, and structures. The thing is that while they might be natural at time management, there can sometimes be a struggle to prioritize what comes at them on a daily basis. So that means even though they like plan structure, they're a bit at the mercy of whatever comes their way that day, or worse, being delegated that day. So get to know what you're like at time management. A lot of improved productivity and job satisfaction has actually been seen as a result of preferred time management structures being implemented. So the next one is communication. Well, this is pretty important, and it's the way that others can observe, hear, and interact with us. It's probably the number one area that we can have conflict in, as you might well know. Everything from our delivery of what we say, our speed, tone, words, volume, etc. It's also how we express our opinions readily or tend to hold back. It's also if we tend to talk in detail and explanations versus big picture and short sentence. It's everything. In the Grow and Develop assessment, there are unique competencies allocated to you out of hundreds available, and they describe your top 5 most natural ways to communicate, as well as your bottom 5 ways. So these are fantastic to discuss in coaching and get to know about yourself. Just remember though, under pressure, we do tend to revert back to our natural way unless we are consciously aware of what we do and how to avoid it if it's hindering us. Just remember also that we may need different communications for different situations. Empathy. So I like this one. It's not in many of the other reports at all. In fact, I think none. So the empathy one I quite like because it targets exactly what I need. And for self-awareness, and they're very closely related, actually, very much connected. Once we become more aware of what makes us who we are better able to understand the differences between ourselves and others and what makes them who they are. So in a nutshell, empathy is the feeling that you understand and share another person's experiences or emotions. There is a huge amount of study to show that the more awareness gained, the more ability there is for empathy. Using the Grow and Develop assessment, you can review your own or discuss the natural or not as natural areas of empathy with a coachee as well. It makes for very interesting discussions, I can really tell you. The next one in the report is looking at the prioritising area. So this is an area we tend not to develop much, as we probably not as much as we should actually through our school and beyond. We use it a bit during our academic years as we need to prioritise study as exams and tests are flung our way, often relentlessly. By the time we get into the workplace, we have things, issues, people coming at us, and we often don't learn to prioritise. So prioritising is the ability to identify and determine the importance of each task. Add pressure, miscommunications, other people's bias to that, and at times many of us can find it really hard to determine what's important to attend to first. There are many charts and structures that can help you with this. Obviously, have a Google, but first learn what you tend to be like at it naturally. Learn if you have developed processes over the years to help you deal with it, or you like 80% of the workforce and fall into whatever comes at you at the day. Independence. Well, as you can see on the slide, independence measures the tendency of a person's eagerness to take action and make independent decisions. So independence is the ability to think or act for oneself without support and being resourceful in the face of challenges. Now, the thing here is that while it's good self-awareness to know this about yourself, your actual job position may not always require it in some aspects, or it may need a lot of it. Just remember that independence can be measured in different aspects. For example, you may work well independently without structures provided to you, but you may not be as independent in managing your own time as effectively. So though we tend to think of C and Ds wanting to work autonomously and independently, don't think that the I and S styles don't want independence in many other ways. So you can't lump it all in together. So make sure that you have a good run through of the competencies and all the different types of independence in different situations. The next one that we're going to look at is initiative. You know, when you show initiative, you do things without being told. You do them before they need doing. You find out what you need to know, and you spot and take advantage of opportunities that others might pass by. But mostly it's about acting rather than reacting. Most of us have seen initiative in action in the workplace. For example, maybe you've seen a young manager who fills her boss's shoes when she's sick and the rest of the team is a bit unsure of what to do, that kind of thing. Well, we see it around us all the time, and it's becoming increasingly important in the workplace as companies really want employees who can think on their feet and take action without waiting for someone to tell them what to do. So after all, this type of flexibility and courage is what pushes teams and organizations to become innovative. And let me tell you, innovation is the buzzword right now in the corporate world. So self-development and learning. We all know that we tend to learn differently from each other, as mentioned before, and self-development learning is no different. Some of you will learn self-knowledge faster through specific guidance, while some will learn better through self-exploration. It's a simple fact that we all have different personalities and need different input for our self-development. As you learn more about your own personality or your style, you become more accepting of your own unique traits and learn to respect the traits of others. Self-awareness in this area means that you can identify what and how you might learn self-development in the best way that suits you. And that's pretty important if you're going through, a personal development journey or a plan, especially with a coachee. Work out how they like to learn, but more importantly, how they like to learn self-development aspects. You're doing well hanging in there with all this talking, but it's just so important to have a look at what the Grow and Develop assessment can offer us differently. Now, stress is in some of the other profiles, but sometimes I wonder if people actually look at it as much as they should. It's such a big thing in our work and our workplace. There is still a debate over what the exact definition is of stress. However, what's important to understand is that it's how our bodies and minds respond to stimuli, things like events, situations, items that are either perceived or real. So that means what causes one person's stress does not necessarily do so for another. And remember too, not all stress is bad. Some stress can be really motivating, and it's that kind of stress that keeps us moving forward. Typically, I styles will always tends to have pressure profiles, showing a little bit of pressure or stress on them. Unfortunately, our modern lifestyle, though, are all too often characterized by distress rather than stress in some way too. So, I find stress awareness one of the least understood in the workplace. Many I will hear say, gosh, that stresses me out, but they have no idea of why it did, never alone how to manage or alleviate it. So the Grow and Development Assessment have all the three factors of stress, as you can see up there, the causes, the sign, and the release. And stress is a really valuable part of self-knowledge. Know your triggers and work to alleviate them where possible. As you can see also on that slide down the bottom, there's a chart there, and that is the overuse areas. I'm a big one for getting people to understand about overuse. So we all tend to be very aware of some of our most used strength areas. So people always tend to be surprised when I train this aspect of overuse. There are times when we emphasize our strengths so much we overuse them, and guess what? They actually become a hindrance. Others can get very frustrated, or it can even hinder your progress at work or your progression at work. If ever there is a big blind spot in people's self-awareness, this tends to be it. We feel comfortable using our strengths in different areas, but what we don't know is how blind we can be to how frequently or how much we're emphasizing it. The other area we do this is when we're under pressure. We tend to put emphasis on strengths that we are so comfortable using. So an example of this might be an I style that we know is really open and they naturally like to engage with people. and can be quite naturally persuasive. So I see it time and time again that under pressure or under emotion, they can become extremely disruptive in a team. They can become very indiscreet with the message or information that they're talking about or giving away. On top of that, the emotionally charged I style can start sub-teaming behind the scenes as they are naturally persuasive with people. So get to know your areas of overuse. Realize when you might be doing it and under what sort of circumstances might you actually be rolling it out. This can lead to great self-awareness as it also helps change how others see you. So, self-awareness in a team, I've sort of lumped them all together here for us to have a quick talk about. But we should all know really what we bring into a team, the way of what team role, our strengths and challenges. There is nothing better to watch a high-performing team in action when team members are utilising their strengths, working with their preferred role, even better, paired with a convergent or complementary style. So those are opposites or similar styles that they are consciously aware of how to work with. The team page in the Grow and Develop assessment, it looks at aspects of team all broken down. And I personally find this quite fantastic to coach with, especially in leadership or designing a team if I ever have the privilege. There's some great information in here, especially under the improving your performance heading at the bottom. So gosh, guys, we got through a lot of information, but I really just, as I said, wanted to show you what some of the differences were with the assessment. They're not they're subtle differences, but when you're coaching, when you are a team leader and you're needing to know information, or maybe you're on your own personal journey, this kind of information is just so vital for self-knowledge. And the more you apply it quickly and effectively, while it's lumped into very practical information here as well. So I find that really helpful. So all this so far that we've talked about has been about internal self-awareness factor. As there are two factors, now let's look at the external. Learning about your external input can be, of course, it can take that self-knowledge to the next level. You can gain external feedback by using an Open 360 feedback report from Extended Disc. So what is an Open 360 feedback report, you might say? It's definitely not part of the behavioural assessment. It's a very different tool with a set of very different questions. It lets direct reports, managers and peers answer a series of questions, usually anonymously, about you. Those questions can be behavioural as well as skills or competency based. As they are people assessing you, they tend to be from all around the different hierarchical levels. So the result does tend to be quite well-rounded feedback as to how others might perceive you. Okay, so of course the results can highlight areas called blind spots. These are areas or things we really might not see about ourselves, but others see and might have an opinion on. These blind spots can also outline when we might be being a bit too harsh on ourselves as well. So either way, the feedback can be illuminating and times a bit confronting, but opinions matter, so we do need to consider them as part of our learning. An Open 360 feedback report done well and delivered well can be incredible for self-development and self-awareness as a whole, especially in leadership development. So do you use them? Do you want to hear more about the 360s and how they can be rolled out? There is actually a lot of support material for them if you do decide to use them. There's even a webinar on the VIP area dedicated just to the Open 360 feedback report. It will go through all the forms, the applications, how to use it, etc. Have a listen, and of course contact HR Profiling if you'd like to get a sample or have it put into the template put into your account. So, today I've highlighted about the importance of self-awareness in the workplace. Understanding ourselves, how we interact with others helps us understand the impact we have on those around us, whether it's a team, clients, or even family members. Many tend to stop their self-awareness journey at the internal stage. They enjoy analysing a profile or assessment and gaining self-knowledge. And you know what? There's nothing wrong with that. This stage can take quite a while depending on the learning style as well. But the perception of others within our circle of influence, whether those perceptions are accurate or inaccurate, often impact our level of success and need to be taken on board as well. So, Extended DISC can offer you tools that cover both aspects of self awareness: the Grow and Develop assessment for internal and the Open 360 feedback report for external. Using these two tools together can give you an incredibly strong tool for your self-awareness journey. And again, I use both of these when I'm putting into practice personal development plans and assessments throughout a year's journey with someone as well. So, if you have any questions about the webinar today or would like some more information, then send an email through to the above email. This webinar itself will usually go up around about a week later, and if you'd like to listen to it again, you can download and have a good listen. But hopefully next time I'll see you logged on to the webinar in about 6 weeks' time for sales and service. Thanks everyone again, and hopefully chat or hear from you soon. Thank you.